Well, it must be back. Board's all jacked.
Also, my update didn't go out over the air. Because it wasn't in program 1.
You were going for a minute, too.
Hey, it's time to visit MaidaChevy.com and see who's made a great deal at Maida.
Carmichael Dave is back. Sorry, the professional show where everything went right on Friday isn't here. I'm totally not insecure. Right? I watched a lot of that. I had nothing to do. I watched a lot of that on the video. Which, by the way, watching the video stream of this show is quite entertaining, I must say. Especially when you got Jason Ross as a part of it. J. Ross loves the cameras. J. Ross is like those people you see behind the set of the Kings pre- and post-game show with Coz and Jerry. He's like the guy waving in the background. There's something about people when a camera hits them and they can see themselves on TV, they lose their mind. It's the same type of thing as when somebody gets a 50-cent item at a ball game. If they're throwing these little rubber basketballs at Kings games. And kids love it. It's great and all that, but dude, no, everybody those balls end up chewed up by a dog, thrown away. Nobody has like a little basketball they got at a game on like a rotating display case. But you give them an opportunity to, hey, you have an opportunity to get a shirt that is 3 sizes too small. We're going to hot dog cannon it into the crowd, and people will throw down on other people to get that. Good morning, Kyle Madson.
The prospect of a free shirt, nothing draws people. We would have 100% voter turnout in this country if you got a free T-shirt when you voted.
That is, you know what? That's a great idea. They should
Instead
have
of
that.
the I voted sticker,
right.
You get an I voted T-shirt.
People would do all day.
And if you want, someone can put it in the T-shirt cannon and shoot it at you if you want.
Absolutely. Just right at you. I've always wondered what would happen if you were standing, let's say, 50 feet away and somebody took a T-shirt, put it in a T-shirt can, and just fired it right at your back. Like, how does that hurt pretty bad? Probably. Or does it just look like it would hurt bad?
I think it looks like it would hurt because it makes a boom boom sound. It goes a long way sound.
What sound?
Thunk.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think that the shirt is not packed tightly enough typically. Because you see it go, it starts out fast, but then it kind of really loses steam quickly as
like
it kind of parachutes a little bit. Yeah. Right. Hey, speaking of losing steam quickly.
Right.
No, never mind. That's a bad transition.
You want to wait a little bit to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me say
really
this.
Bad transition by me.
We have a lot to catch up on here. And it is good to be back, and I missed all of you, even the ones that didn't miss me. And I love you, and thank you so much. Kyle, I'll say I felt for you on Friday. I was the funniest part of the show to me. And thank you, by the way, to Damian and Jason, all of you guys, you, Matt, George, Eunice, I guess Eunice just does. It doesn't really change.
Yeah, no thanks to Eunice.
Eunice just kind of comes and does the thing. Either way, regardless of who's here, Eunice is going to do her job. But seriously, thanks to everybody who filled in. What I found very funny, probably only to me, is that Kyle Madson from this show and Kyle Madson with Damian is hilarious to me because you are so ingrained through, first off, your own normal personality, and secondly, the encouragement from my ADD ways.
Right.
I very much enjoyed you going off the rails and having some stupid ass comment that fits in perfectly with what we do.
Right.
That would just throw Damian completely off, and I could see the look he's giving you. With that, I could barely see the look he was giving you because that scarf was almost covering his entire body. I'm watching the look. I'm going, welcome aboard, welcome aboard. That worked out. I forget what you were doing at one point, but you said something. You had turned your mic on, and so he went to you, and you had almost immediately turned it off. You're like, I shouldn't do this. He calls on you.
Like, all right, you asked for this.
You asked for it. And you said it was one of your puns or something. He was just like, okay. Yeah, dude, we're trying to. See, Damian is professional.
Right.
Very directed.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his stuff that
Very
he's
well prepared.
Hey, we're well prepared. I'm just saying.
We're definitely prepared.
Okay. Here's the thing. I've looked at it. He's left his prep in here before.
He's well prepared. We're well prepared.
I would say if you didn't know either show, and you looked at our prep and you looked at his prep, I think you'd think our show was more prepped. We have more stuff segmented out and written down. But Damian actually sticks to his prep.
Well, and that's just a rundown. He has like a whole.
Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about like research and reading. None of that. Of course not.
Right, he researches.
I'm saying, we copy paste headlines. we just control V ESPN.com, control V it onto a page. But it's a different vibe. I don't know why he doesn't do any of our segments though. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I asked if he wanted to, and he's like, "No, we're just."
Why does he get special rules? I mean, if I go on his show, if I was going to cover his show,
well, because this is your show, and if you wanted that, you should have. I guess I
should have said something.
Yeah, been like, "Hey, let's keep those in."
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just trying to make
I'm Josh, and I love Damian, I love Jason, and I love
I still got that Fire Wings 4 down territory read in though.
Yeah, you did, baby.
Yeah.
You all did a great job. Seriously, and thank you very much. So last week, hey, I found a new diet plan. Let me tell you, I found an amazing diet plan. And for those of you close to the holidays looking to lose some pounds, well, first off, go to Dr. Jack Friedlander or NorCal Lipo.
Obviously.
Okay. But if you're looking for something quicker, let me tell you about norovirus. It's amazing. It is. My wife and I were already trying to eat better anyway, so we have a little eraser pen, and we wrote our weights on our bathroom mirror in our bedroom. Last Sunday. And so I weighed myself last night, right? A week to the day. I've lost 8.5 pounds in a week through my good friend norovirus. Hey, they should bottle it and sell it. Norovirus.
I think they do. I think it's called Yahoo.
Oh God, it is. People say they wouldn't wish something on their worst enemy. Well, I would totally wish that on my worst enemy. Don't get me wrong. Like whoever, I don't have a really worst enemy, but somebody I really hate. Hey, you get norovirus. It's a couple of days of hell, and it is. When was the last time you threw up, Kyle? Do you remember?
The last time,
not from hangover.
Oh, it was a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
I got food poisoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know that feeling where you just don't have it anymore, but you know you're going to throw up again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I threw up 7 times between 9 o'clock at night and about 6 a.m. when your show started. And you know how for days later, you're still recovering your energy, and anytime you cough or sneeze, it feels like you got hit by baseball bats.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at now.
So when you exercise, your abs get sore.
Yeah, I don't.
And that's what that is.
What is that?
Because
what is this exercise? That's another thing. I probably have a 6-pack right now simply from throwing up. Like norovirus, lose weight, build muscle. I will say we got to go to break, but I'll say
we do.
I will say this. The only thing I could think of worse than having norovirus was the many people that had norovirus and have norovirus that are in tents, that were in parking lots, that were up there in the Chico Paradise areas affected by the fires. I want to, and I'll say this later more extensively, I really want to thank from the bottom of my heart. This is the first time I've been on the air since I went up to Chico. I want to thank everybody last week, all of you listening, everybody here at the station, the air staff, especially the promotion staff behind the scenes that did the actual labor and grunt work, everybody for pitching in. This is when radio is at its best. It is at its best when we use the platform for good and everybody pitches in and helps out. And we'll get into more later. In fact, Brian May used to be of ABC 10 doing sports and now works, I don't know what his title is. I think it's the...
he's a guitarist for Queen.
I think he's like Office of Emergency Services with the state or what. He's going to come on at 8:30. And we're going to update everything going on with the fires. We'll get into more of that later, but sincerely from the bottom of my heart, you guys killed it last week.
It was very
in
cool.
an amazing way. And thank you so much for everything. We will take a break. We got a lot to talk about today. The Raiders beat the Cards, so that affects the draft possibly. Alex Smith broke his leg. And Kyle, interesting timing aspect of this too. We'll get into that later.
Oh.
Yeah, there was an interesting timing aspect to this whole thing.
Oh, I have not heard about any timing aspect.
And the Kings lost 2 over the weekend, and I think something else happened with them. I'm not sure. There was a report, so I don't know. We'll try to find out what that was.
Speaking of the Kings, we're giving away not 1 but 2 pairs of Sacramento Kings tickets. Watch the Kings take on the Utah Jazz at the Golden One Center on November 25th. Get more info at khtk.com. All KHTK giveaways are powered by RosevilleAutomall.com.
Hey, are we really? We're doing that today? Damn it! I should have looked at our little giveaway sheet.
We have pairs to give away all week, though.
We do. Okay, so guess what, Kyle? This week we're unveiling our "How Well Do You Know Your Kings"
Trivia!
content. Yes. We've had this since Media Day. We'll have some fun with that. We'll take a break. Morning Brew is next. See, we're already not on time. I must be back at Sports 1140 KHTK. Yeah, I picked the wrong video is what I did.
And now you picked the wrong sound.
No, I picked the wrong. Almost did.
Pressure in the backcourt by the Kings. A minute to play. Going to the rim. Oh, my. Full time off the bounce spike thrown down by Gerald Green. That was sensational. 33-29. Gerald Green now has 5 points off the Houston bench.
Well, it was a 0-2 weekend for your Sacramento Kings, and that's not even the top story with your Kings from the weekend. The Chris Haynes Yahoo report is what's on everyone's mind. If you didn't see the Yahoo report, Chris Haynes is a very respected reporter. There are some reporters out there that you just kind of they put out that clickbait and you dismiss it. Chris Haynes isn't one of those guys,
Right.
and the report he put out, if you stop and read it, 99% of the article is completely understandable. But it's the headline that grabbed everybody. Sources. Disagreement over Kings' direction could lead to Coach Dave Yeager's dismissal. Sometimes, by the way, editors, and I don't know that this happened, it probably didn't, but editors will drop in headlines on reporters. And I don't know if that's what happened here, because that's a pretty big headline to drop in on a reporter.
A buddy of mine who works for a newspaper said the headline he files is never the headline that gets put up.
Wouldn't you think for something like that, though, there would be you literally write for USA Today. Wouldn't there be a conversation, or at least an email exchange between reporter and editor, if you're going to put something in like a coach could be dismissed?
Yeah, if I was, I would definitely go to my boss and say, hey, how should I word this? How should I phrase this?
So we're going to talk about that at length and just kind of put that baby to bed. I'm
also not Chris Haynes, so.
No. Oh, you're not? You're not Chris Haynes?
Does that jeopardize my future on the show?
Might be. I thought you were Chris Haynes this entire time. Either way, we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the 0-2 weekend. And I'll ask you at some point, Kyle, in the show, tonight, I should say, is this the first, and I'm using air quotes here, is this the first must-win game of the year for the Sacramento Kings? And I'll tell you why it's the closest thing to a must-win game so far this year. We'll talk about that many times throughout the show, starting at 6:35. Number 2.
3rd down and 3, ball on the 5-yard line. Carr rolls hard right, fires in zone, touchdown! Brandon LaFell got wide open in the right corner, about a yard inside the pylon.
The Oakland Raiders are victorious. And with the Oakland Raiders being victorious, so kind of are the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, ideal outcomes for them this weekend.
It really was. It really was not just one, but two ideal outcomes for them as the New York Football Giants also beat Tampa Bay in a wild one, 38-35. It's interesting. JT the Brick, who took some weird road. He used to be a caller into a radio show and has now hosted programs on the air. That's kind of stupid. What kind of joker loser does that?
He still goes by a nickname?
Yeah, what is that? He is JT the Brick. How weird is that? He put out something yesterday. It was like, real fans root for wins. Real fans root for wins, and anybody rooting for losses and draft. We got into a lot of this last year with the tank commanding and blah, blah, blah. If you're rooting for wins, then I just wonder if he was talking about John Gruden, who traded away, every part of the team, and they're losing. Well, they won yesterday, and the draft is a real thing, and we're getting closer to that now. We'll take a look at the landscape, and I'm curious with Raider fan, are they happier about the win, or are they pissed because
they dropped 3 spots in the draft?
Yeah, that's a little bit of cheddar right there. That's a lot of trade value amongst other things. So we'll talk about that and get your Raiders highlights at 6:45. Also, Scott Bear will join us Wednesday at 8:05. Number 3.
Here comes the blitz. They're coming clean. Alex Smith under heat. He's steamrolled at the 40-yard line. That takes him out of field goal range. And Alex Smith is hurt. He clutched his right knee as he went down.
Well, Alex Smith is hurt. Alex Smith broke his fibula and his tibia. His fibula and his tibia.
There you go.
Excuse me. As somebody who has broken their fibula not once, not twice, but 3 times in 2 different legs, I can tell you.
Fibula. Your fibula.
What did I say? Fibia?
You did it again.
Fibula. So you got the tibia is the big boy.
Right.
The fibula is the smaller one. That's the better one to break. Here's the deal about that injury. You ask most doctors, and Kyle is physically cringing off of it. Here's the deal. Here's what's crazy about that. For a catastrophic leg injury, that's like one of the best you can suffer. It's not a broken ankle. It's not a broken thigh. And 99.9%, I haven't been in, I'll be sitting in later on the surgery to see the complete damage, of course. But without seeing it and just on spec, this is so much better than what we see often, which is quarterback goes down in a heap and just completely destroys their knee. Any doctor will tell you from an athlete's point of view, a break is always better than a tear.
Right.
The bone will heal, the bone will be strong, you would imagine, and the recovery time will be a lot better and easier generally than if Alex had just gone down with a torn ACL.
However, the sight of his leg just kind of flopping while he rolled over was very unsightly.
I know. And the visual is a problem.
Really brutal.
I just wanted to point out that we see torn knees almost every week, if not every week in football. Those are worse than what happened yesterday to Alex Smith. We're just used to it, and you don't see a leg flopping around like who was the kid? Kevin Ware. Those types of injuries are horrible to look at. So thoughts with Alex Smith. God, I almost just said he has caught so many bad breaks in his career, and I almost said that as a legitimate thing and then stopped myself because I was not trying to make a pun. Let me try to say that again. Alex Smith has had some hurdles in his career, and I think most 49er fans and other people genuinely root for the guy. So we'll take a break. When we come back, Kings, Rockets. Let's look at the schedule and OKC coming in tonight. This is going to be a tough road to hoe for the Kings, maybe the toughest all year. It's The Drive, Sports 1140 KHTK.
Hey, this is Kyle Madson on Sports 1140 with your top stories. The Sacramento Kings dropped a pair of games in Memphis over the weekend. A pair of games in Memphis and Houston over the weekend. They're back home tonight, though, to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at the Golden One Center. Our coverage begins on Sports 1140 with game night at 5:30. Kings Live is at 6:30 and tip-off is set for 7 o'clock. The Raiders got their no reason. The Raiders got their second win of the season, 23-21 yesterday over the Arizona Cardinals down in the desert. Kicker Daniel Carson drilled a 35-yard field goal as time expired to secure the win for Oakland. It was a wild Week 11 in the NFL with all but 2 games decided by 5 or fewer points. The Chiefs are in Los Angeles tonight against the Rams to wrap up the week. It's 6:32. Time to visit MaidaChevy.com and see who's made a great deal at Maida.
Here we go. The drive continues now.
Jiffy Lube sponsors the text line along with our video feed. Jiffy Lube and Sac Republic on the video feed. You can watch us at khdk.com. Just scroll on down to listen live. And hey, there we are. Hi, and how are you? Carmichael, Dave, Kyle, Madson, taking you all the way till 9 a.m. on what is a truncated schedule this week. Love that word. We will be going through Wednesday. Thursday, Friday will be off.
Anytime I can fit truncated in a story, I do it.
Of course you do.
Like, I get so excited when I look at a player's stats and I see they only played like 12 of 16 games. I can say, yes, he had this many catches for this many yards in a truncated 2016 season.
It's a great
It's my
term.
favorite thing to do.
Rumors over the weekend, and this came through Yahoo Sports and Chris Haynes, that Dave Yeager's contract would be truncated. Thank you. Because of lack of playing time for Marvin Bagley, amongst others. The gist of the article is that there's a disagreement within the front office and the organization as to the amount of minutes that Marvin Bagley has been getting. And that if it doesn't change, it could lead to Dave Yeager's dismissal. Now, on the surface, that's ludicrous. It's malarkey. That's hullabaloo. Because Dave Yeager's mentioned pretty much in any conversation as an early Coach of the Year candidate for the Kings, now 8-8, start 8-6 going into the weekend. So what I would invite everybody to do, first off, let's say this. Chris Haynes is a reputable reporter, and there's no part of me that believes that he fabricated this story. Let's just say that right off the top.
That real journalists have their credibility, and that's it. And the motivation for Chris Haynes to go, let's make up a story about the Kings.
Right.
Like that's not how it goes.
And I saw you going back and forth with a guy in the text line. It's like, hey, as far as I'm concerned, if it's not, what do you say here? If the source isn't named, the story is a bunch of crap. Well, that's just, I don't want to call that stupid. That's just being, really, and I don't mean this as an insult, that's just ignorant to the way journalism works and has always worked. There are people that need to get things out at times, and you mentioned Watergate, and there's 900 other examples.
Sure.
You can't go on record. You can't put your name on it, but you want to get it out. You either have an agenda. Well, you always have an agenda. There's something you need to get out. And yeah, we want everybody to go on record and say, like, well, Phil Smith said this. But really, most of the time, that doesn't happen. And if you're waiting for that, if you just want to read stuff that is sourced with names, then you're going to miss out on 90% of things that are going to happen before they happen.
Right.
It certainly gets abused. The term sources gets abused.
USA Today has a rule where we can't use unnamed sources. So if a Niners source texts me and says, hey, you can't use my name, but the Niners are thinking about trading Jimmy Garoppolo.
Really?
I don't know. And it can be the GM. Like, John Lynch can text me and be like, hey, we're shopping Jimmy G. Don't put my name on it. I can't report that.
Well, that's dumb. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth. You work for them. I will say that's just dumb. That's dumb. And that's I don't want to get you in trouble. But
please don't.
You're missing out on
all of my income.
Right. You're missing out on a lot of stuff there. Now, the other side of that coin. There were many. I would invite a lot of you to play. You can play amateur detective if you wish. Go through the article. Sometimes it's not that hard to either find out A, who the source is, or B, what type of person the source is. Is it inside the organization? Is it an agent? Is it a family member? Understand that you have to look first off, and we can really get into this, and we'll do this with Sam on Wednesday because that's fun. And yes, we're having Sam on Wednesday. You have to look at how this journalism works. Is it a source familiar with the way the team thinks? Is it a source close to the team?
That's the big thing.
There's many different ways to apply your source. Now, this is just saying sources say, and then there are paragraphs, and let me help you out here, and we'll get deeper into this at 7:30. The front office views this season as a development year, sources said. Okay, so we're inching towards this as a front office source because now we're talking about the outlook of the front office from the front office's point of view. There's another paragraph in there, or should I say line, that really to me is the biggest red flag as to where this is coming from. Quote, the restructured Kings front office and their recent strategic approach have been lauded by rival executives, a healthy respect that hasn't been present for some time. Almost always when a source feeds a reporter a quote or a story, that story will contain something that lauds the source and the source's interests. For example, if a coach is on the hot seat and you're getting that from an agent for the coach, at some point in that article, again, I'm trying to help you look for this stuff, you'll see something like rival executives and other teams from around the league have been amazed with the job that coach XYZ has done this year and expect that he'll be in high demand should he hit the free agent market. Or player agents. Should player XYZ be released, traded, et cetera, from said team, demand will be significant as the contract is actually viewed as a very good deal amongst other league executives.
And an important thing here is reporters like Chris Haynes talk to somebody like in person or knows that this isn't the point is this isn't a random phone call he got from
Correct.
a block number
Correct.
on a voice disguiser.
Correct.
That's like, "Hi, Chris. This is a member of the Kings front office." Like no, he vets this source. He knows who it is.
Bagley needs to play more, or Dave Yeager is going to get fired.
Yeah.
This isn't Marvin Bagley's dad.
or no, don't get yourself in trouble there. We don't know who it is.
We have no. That was obviously
I
joking.
think I know exactly who it is, but we don't know who it is enough to this person's point about put names on it. I am not sure enough as to who it is or who the multiple people are to say on a radio station that runs the Kings games or that doesn't run the Kings games or in the article I wrote last night. I'm not confident enough to name that person, but I'll tell you this. I would bet at least 50% of my kid's college fund, which isn't a ton, but is significant enough at this point. She's 11, he's 10. I would bet a significant portion. I know who it is. I'm 89% confident I know exactly where this is coming from. So here's the point I want to make, and we'll go to break. Chris Haynes' story can be right as far as there being misgivings within the front office. But let me turn it around, and I'll invite you guys to use this whatever job you have. Damian filled in on Friday. I know Damian's a morning guy. Let's just go into a world where Damian is after my job and wants the morning show. Something that would never happen.
How'd you know that?
Damian. Okay, so let's say the media covered KHTK like a basketball team. And Damian was talking to a reporter who was writing an article on KHTK and said, listen, you can't quote me. Don't quote me on this, obviously, but Dave's not getting out on his breaks on time. If Dave doesn't get out on his breaks on time soon enough, they're going to fire him and they're going to fire him. And then you see an article. Sources within KHTK say that Carmichael Dave's continued refusal to go on break on time could eventually lead to his dismissal. And then a paragraph later in that article would say, if that happened, a phenomenal replacement, according to rival executives, would be Damian Barling in the mornings. You have a source in the organization. It's a legit source. You should write it, but ultimately that person doesn't make the decisions. Ultimately, it's what matters at the top that makes the decisions. There will always be disagreements. And that's kind of where we're at trying to dissect this for you guys so that you understand it's a legit report in the sense that I'm sure somebody's upset with the minutes. But as far as him going anywhere this year.
Right, he's not on the verge of getting fired.
As I said over the weekend, and we'll take a break, Dave Yeager could probably relieve himself at center court at this point on television And short of that, he's not going anywhere this year.
Felony.
Is it a felony?
I think that's a
Is
felony.
that a felony?
That's like,
Can we find out what that would be?
Yeah, it's
That's
like indecent exposure for sure.
Yeah, is that felony or misdemeanor? We'll take a break. When we come
I'm sure there's, oh man, there's probably a slew of stuff. Hey, we're late, by the way.
When we come back, it's your fault. Raiders beat the Cardinals.
Damien gets to his break sometime.
Should Raider fan be? Sources say. And Derek Carr and John Gruden were yammering at each other. Is that a big deal or not?
Damien gets to his break sometime.
We'll take a break. We're back in 4. Raiders Cardinals, Sports 1140 KHTK. All righty. A lot of stuff to get to, including some football for you.
Also, Kings tickets to give away later in the show.
Is that so? What game is that, Kyle?
That's on November 25th against the Utah Jazz at the Golden One Center.
How is it possible, Kyle, that we have 5 highlights in the Raider-Cardinal game?
And none of the game-winning kick?
And none of the game-winning kick.
Brother, if I didn't swear about that before the show once, I did it 1,000 times.
That's great work. Here you go. Here's a highlight from the Raider game.
3rd down and 3, ball on the 5-yard line. Carr rolls hard right, fires in zone, touchdown! Brandon LaFell got wide open in the right corner, about a yard inside the pylon.
What we wanted is the kick is up, and it's good, and the Raiders win. Because that's what happened yesterday. The kick was up, and it was good. And the Oakland Raiders beat the Arizona Cardinals. What was that, their second win of the year? Babe. Second win of the year for the Raiders. And I'm curious to hear from Raider fan at 441140, and, of course, the Firewings hotline at 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. Firewings just wing it. Oakland goes to 2-8. Oakland wins their first game in, well, they had a 5-game losing streak. They now own wins versus the Browns and the Cardinals. In fact, the Raiders' 2 wins this year have come by a grand total of 5 points. But they're 2 wins. The remaining schedule for the Raiders: at the Ravens, home Chiefs, home Steelers, at Bengals, home Broncos, at Chiefs. You never know what's going to happen with resting teams. And I would absolutely fathom that the final game of the season at Arrowhead is going to be the Chiefs' second and third string. They should have the AFC West wrapped up by then handily, depending on what the Chargers do. And also Denver at the end of the year. Don't know what's happening there. But bottom line, as far as the NFL draft goes, both the Giants and Raiders won, which means that the 49ers arguably had their best weekend of the season, and they did not play a game. Because now the 49ers are in the old catbird seat. And Kyle, am I right when I say that the 49ers, if the season ended today, would own the number 1 draft pick?
Yeah, it's correct. So the way the NFL draft order works is the tiebreaker is strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people were confused because how did the Niners have the pick over the Raiders? They beat the Raiders, and the Cardinals beat the Niners twice, but the Raiders beat the Cardinals but lost to the Niners. So it's just strength of schedule. That's all that matters. So if you flesh out the strength of schedule for the rest of the year, the Niners have the worst strength of schedule among the 2-win teams, so they get the higher pick.
So you have 3 2-win teams, the Niners, the Cardinals, and Raiders. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Kyle, but you have now 6 games left in the season for most teams. Could that, in fact, change as the season progresses?
Oh, of course.
And obviously other teams do better or do worse that all 3 of those teams are playing, if that makes sense.
Right.
So as of today, though, you're sitting with the Raiders win yesterday. They went from the number 1 pick in the draft to the number 3 pick in the draft behind Arizona, whom they beat, and the 49ers.
Right.
Now, I would say to you, in the NBA, you can make an argument. We saw it last year. In fact, we've seen it 2 years in a row where the Kings have technically won the lottery. They have moved up when they should not have. They have picked higher than they mathematically should have. That is an argument against tanking. What I don't understand is the argument against tanking in football. Like, I don't understand that at all. Because there's no lottery. There's no question. The question is very simple to Raider fans. If the season ended today, the Raiders would have fallen 2 picks yesterday from number 1 to number 3. Would you trade, now fast forward to June here, would you trade the number 1 pick in the draft for a win over the Cardinals on November 18th and the number 3 pick in the draft?
I think for the Raiders, it's a little different. You'd rather get a win and get that locker room at least a little bit behind Gruden, especially in a game where the report came out in the middle of the game that they were yelling, that Derek Carr and John Gruden were yelling at each other, and at least you get a victory so they can, after the game, go, that's not the first time that's happened, da-da-da-da, it's just the first time you've seen it. They got the win. They feel good about it. They have 3 first-round picks. Mm-hmm. They have a ton of draft capital, so going from 1 to 3, you still have a top 3 pick. Mm-hmm. You at that point,
I think the number 3 pick in the draft, though, the number 1 pick in the draft carries with it so much weight when it comes to value. Not just in the player drafted, but also in the ability to trade.
But that's, I guess, sort of my point is they already have a ton of draft capital that they can move up and down and around the board with.
But we're also talking about just this one draft.
If there's a player that they want, number 1, that they are just dying, they're like, we need that player. They have the draft capital to move up.
But they would have to spend some of that draft capital to do that.
Yeah.
So they lost draft capital yesterday. And not just in this draft, but remember.
Yeah, of course. They lost 2 picks.
They could turn around and trade the number 1 pick in the draft this year for 15 freaking picks over the next 3 years if they wanted. Mm-hmm. I disagree with you because of this, and specifically because of John Gruden and the Raiders. He's got a 10-year deal. And 75% of this roster is probably going to be gone next year. So it doesn't matter. I don't think anybody next September is going to be like, I'd be behind John. But we didn't get that win against the Cardinals. We lost X, Y, Z. I think people have short memories when it comes to seasons. I think John Gruden's job's safe. If it wasn't safe, I'd agree with the point more.
I was talking more internally.
Sure.
That was a good. But no, I'm as a fan, like I would never root for my favorite team to lose, like actively root for them to lose because I can't do that. Mm-hmm. But I can see the benefit of a loss. If the 49ers lose out, it would stink for 49ers fans, but you're looking and going, hey, but that's great. You stay at 2 wins. You're guaranteed a top 3 pick if you stay at 2 wins.
We'll talk more about this later because I will root for my team. I've gotten over that. That's like one of those like I don't like the stew because it has antelope in it and I didn't know beforehand. Like just get used to the fact that you like the stew and there's antelope in it instead of beef. You know what I'm saying? Like I got over that a long time ago. I'll root for my team to lose because I know I'm really rooting for them to win.
Sure.
When we get back, my team, the Kings, not Kyle's team, but he's still nice about them. They play Oklahoma City tonight. This ain't your daddy's Oklahoma City team, by the way, that we played earlier this season. They're a little bit different. We'll talk about that. We'll skip talking about the Dave Yeager report because we spent enough time on that. I want to get to the weekend that was and tonight's game and why it's the first must-win of the year for this ball club. The drive back in a couple. Sports 1140 KHTK.